think we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Today we have the 7 best negotiation tips with Jack Tumminello. He's presented for us in the past. It's been a few months since the last time he's presented for us, but you're definitely in for a treat. You're going to learn a lot of things that you didn't know, a lot of things that you're glad you're going to learn about. So as we get going, I just want to quickly talk about SCORE in case you're new to SCORE. We have a couple of different things that we offer. One is the information on our websites. There's templates, business templates you can download, and we're not talking just about business plans. We're talking about budgets and cash flow worksheets and marketing plans and all kinds of things. There's also recordings you can watch and different blogs and articles you can read. So I just strongly encourage you to check that out. You know about our training because you're here with us today. So watch for those newsletters. The most important thing that SCORE does, however, is the mentoring. Our mentors are always free and the sessions are confidential. Our mentors have a wide variety of experience and knowledge that they want to share with the small business community. We work with folks that are trying to find out if small business is right for them. We're working with those that are in that planning phase, and we're working with those that are already in business. They're coming back to us for help with bookkeeping, marketing, work-life balance, you name it. And we have a mentor out there somewhere we're going to find that we can match you to get you the help that you need to be successful. A first session is going to be finding out about your goals and your challenges, and they're going to work with you to come up with a plan. Our mentors work as a team. So even though you are assigned a main mentor, that mentor is reaching out to the group or inviting other mentors to come to future meetings so that you have a well-rounded experience and get all the help that you need. Getting a mentor is very easy. You can use that QR code that's on the screen. You can also go to the score.org website. There's a blue box. You put in your zip code. It will send you to the chapter that's appropriate for you. It's going to ask you some questions about how we can help you. And then that chapter will match you to a mentor, either in their chapter or, if necessary, another chapter if that needed to be the case. But that's how you do it. It's super, super simple, super, super easy. And most sessions are, most of them are on Zoom anymore. We do have a handful of in-person, and of course, phone is always an option as well. We are recording today, and you can find the recording on the score.org/Boston website. It'll be under the local workshop tab under previously recorded. It may only be available for a short period of time, so definitely check it out if you wanted to watch this presentation again. We are using the Q&A tab. We have a significant number of people on the call today. We are going to try and get to as many questions as we can possibly get to before the time's up. So Q&A button on your Zoom tab to enter your questions. Everything else can go into chat. So I'm going to pull my share down and let Mr. Tumminello get his ready for everyone. And you can begin when you are ready.
Okay, let's
Great.
All right. So I presume, Teresa, we're all set here. Great. I'll presume that's a yes. Listen, this is a great little course. I think you're going to learn a lot today. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's been very, very successful for folks. I know that most say, well, what negotiating is, I don't negotiate. Actuality, you've been negotiating since you were a little kid. Ever since you were hungry and you cried because you were hungry as a baby, you were negotiating. When you were fed, you would stop crying. If you got tired and were cranky and you wanted to go to sleep, you'd cry and you'd go to, mom would put you to bed. So you've been negotiating all along. You negotiate with your kids, listen, you rake the leaves and you can use the car this weekend, that type of thing. So what I'm here to do is not to teach you how to negotiate. I'm here to teach you how to make a better deal, how to do it more successfully, both for you and for your counterpart in negotiation. Just a little background on myself. I've probably been where you are. I've worked internationally, I've worked domestically, I've been a CEO, entrepreneur, I've been an instructor, teaching computers, a long time ago. So I've been a manager, I've been a supervisor, I've been a professional employee, I've been an independent rep, an independent consultant. So I've done a lot of things in my career, and really what I'm bringing together here is pretty much everything that I've learned along the way. And one of the things that I've always found is that whenever I did, negotiation was always core. It was always in there. It was always part of what was going on. So today we're going to cover 7 topics, and with each topic, I'm going to have a tip, which I think is important for you to have. We're going to talk about understanding value. We're going to talk about how you develop leverage in a negotiation. We're going to talk about the strategy of a negotiation. Then we're going to talk about black swans. The black swans are the unknowns that occur in a negotiation and how to discover them, because they can be of benefit to you. The following after that, we're going to talk about the fact that all negotiators are human. And this is really important. I have something here very important to share with you, and if you keep it in mind, you'll end up being successful. I guarantee it. You'll figure out how to deal with the devil, because we're all in those situations where somebody, maybe because of their position or because of their physical presence or because of their demeanor, you are just intimidated for one reason or another. We'll talk about how to deal with that devil, the devil being the person and the devil being an unfamiliar situation. And then we'll talk about closing the deal. And there's a tip related to that. So we've got to start with a definition, a really quick definition. And I need to give you a little introduction to make sure that we're all on the same page as we're going forward here. So to negotiate. Negotiate means to communicate, and that's the key word here, in search of mutual agreement. Well, you can't communicate without another person, at least one other person. So it's obviously between 2 people or 3 people, whatever it might be, but you are communicating in search of a mutual agreement, something that you both can say, okay, I agree, you agree, yes, let's go forward. We're negotiating, we have a deal. You've obviously, there are examples. The police negotiator, you've seen movies and stories, you know they exist. They're out there. This is a video screen from the movie Casablanca. And here we have a gentleman in a suit trying to sell some lace to the woman. So this is just an example of negotiating. He keeps on changing the price and finding reasons to change the price to get her to buy. So he's trying to leverage her by lowering the price. She doesn't go for it in the end, but that's okay. It's just a movie. In baseball, we all watch baseball, at least a lot of us do. There's all sorts of deals going on, and they're going on over the place. Babe Ruth, every year we wait for the hot stove, and we're just about entering it, at least here in Boston. We're going to see what the new general manager can do, Breslow. So it's going to be an interesting 3 or 4 months going on here. And this is a movie that I really enjoyed, and I think it's probably one of the best movies related to negotiation that you can watch. It's called The Bridge of Spies, and Tom Hanks stars in it, and he does an outstanding job. And it's all about the negotiation that actually took place to get Francis Gary Powers back from Russia, and the exchange that had to take place to get him back. Francis Gary Powers was the pilot, the U-2 pilot that was shot down over Russia in 1956-ish, something like that, 58, 59. But it's a really great story. It's a 2-hour movie. I guarantee you, whether it's related to negotiation or not, you'll enjoy the movie. It's really an excellent movie. So let's go into the anatomy of a negotiation first. Here's a car, it's for sale. What's going to happen? So let's suppose you're the buyer. You come into the situation, you have two things in your mind. One, you have a price that you'd like to be able to buy that car for, and that's called your aspiration price. That in this case, it's $4,500. There is a price also in your head, and that's why all this is in dotted lines. There's a price in your head as to you're not going to go above that amount of money. You're not going to spend more than $7,000 for this car. So, okay, so that's fair. There's your position when you're coming into a negotiation. On the other hand, you've also got the seller. And the seller comes with a reservation price and an aspiration price. In this case, he or she is trying to sell the car for $8,000. But they also have a reservation price which says, I'm not going to sell it for anything less than $5,500. So what this really shows you is what is called the ZOPA, and terminology is terminology, but this is called the zone of potential agreement. Pretty simple, but it's where the two people can possibly overlap. This is where the agreement can take place. This is your standard anatomy of a negotiation. And the anatomy of a negotiation might go something like this. The buyer says, hey, how much are you asking for the car? The seller says $7,600. Oh, that's too much. How about $5,800? The seller comes back and says, well, it's got $400 new tires, so you increase your price for $400. You say $6,200. And he says, but wait a minute, so it's got 5,500, oh, it's got 55,000 miles on it. I said, let's split the difference. You come back and say, well, okay, $6,000 or $6,900, take it or leave it. And okay, it's a deal. So that's the typical basic negotiation that takes place. People are offering, people are suggesting, people are offering reasons for something being better or less. But in both cases, they're trying to leverage the other person to come closer to their position. In 1981, there was a book written called Getting to Yes. And this really was a watershed moment in the whole theory and practice of negotiating. It was written by two Harvard professors, Mr. Urey and Mr. Fisher. And they wrote this book. And it really crystallized the whole idea of win-win negotiating, not competing. Stop competing. That was the message of the book. And start collaborating. Figure out how you can work together to give each other what they want. So we're going to talk about that. And that's really the new principle and theory of negotiating. It isn't a competitive environment anymore. It's a collaborative environment. And that's what's really key, because you're going to come out better off than what you think you're going to if you can execute this type of negotiation. So first point that I want to talk about is value. Now you say value. Well, I mean, yeah, we all have our positions on what might be of value to me. And value by definition is relative worth, merit, or importance. Relative to you. Relative to not the other person, but what's relative to you. What my value is not necessarily what your value is. Let me give you an example. Here is, you've seen this probably picture 100 times. This is Peter Minuit, the Dutch explorer, coming into Manhattan, and he's buying the island of Manhattan from the Canarsie Indians. This is 1626. He comes over and he supposedly gives them $24 worth of cloth and beads and so on. And most people look at this and say, oh my gosh, what a lopsided trade. The Dutch got Manhattan, and the Indians got $24 worth of goods and services, or goods. It seems very lopsided, but let's take a look at what the value is that each one is exchanging. First of all, the Dutch are giving away a small amount, and they're leveraging a decision by the Indians to give them the island of Manhattan, which is really pretty great. And so it sounds like they've got a great deal. They're giving away a little and they're getting a lot. The Canarsie indigenous tribe, on the other hand, are looking and saying, oh, wait a minute. I've got all of this land, all of this water. I've got more water and land and air and sea that I know what to do with. So if I can get something for a piece of this, and what's Manhattan? Manhattan's an island. I got to take a canoe over from Canarsie to even get over here to hunt. So giving you the rights to this place, fine, you can have them. So in the Canarsie Indians' point of view, they got a real deal. So it's relative. The Canarsie Indians are really happy, and so is Peter Minuit very happy. Now, the story behind the story is kind of comical in a way. The Canarsie is a section of Brooklyn. Canarsie is actually out near JFK Airport, which is forever a drive out from New York City or Manhattan, especially in traffic. They just happened to be, when this transaction took place, they just happened to be on the island of Manhattan hunting. It wasn't, quote unquote, their property. The indigenous peoples didn't have this whole theory of possession of property. That was a European concept. The Indians just shared everything. So they just happened to come over and they were hunting on the island. Peter Minuit found them, came across them. They negotiated a deal. The Canarsie Indians got back in their canoes, went back to Canarsie with all of their materials and said, well, that's that. They were happy. And Peter Minuit actually had to renegotiate with another indigenous peoples tribe later on. So who got the better deal? And interestingly, a little bit fast forward 30 years, the Dutch actually sold the island of Manhattan to the British. It came in a form of a treaty. And in that treaty that they had, the Dutch traded the island of Manhattan for a very, 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 very small island in the East Indies. But this small island in the East Indies was famous for producing nutmeg. And nutmeg happened to be an extremely, extremely valuable quantity in Europe at that time. So they traded this piece of land across the ocean, across the Atlantic, for all the spice trades that they were going to get out of the East Indies. So anyway, the message is value. And value is relative again. Let me give you a couple more examples. Individual and personal. Let's suppose I just came back from Europe and I had a 50 or 100 euro note in my pocket, and I go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? I didn't use it over there. How am I going to get it? And I'm standing in front of you, and there's 150 of you out there, and I said, does anybody want to buy this note? I'll sell it to you for $70. So it's worth like $112. I'll sell it to you for $70. Well, some of you might go for it. Some of the others might not. Why? Because maybe the people who will go for it and buy it from me are planning to go to Europe next week, next month, or they're going back, or maybe they're international and they're just going home. Other people say, I have no plans to go to Europe. So what am I going to do with a euro 50, 100 euro note? So again, it's individual. What may be of value to me is not of value to you. And it's also variable. Another example. I'm walking to an interview in Boston, and I'm all dressed up, got a nice suit on, really looking good. Starts to rain. I dart into Macy's, and I go down to the men's shop, and I grab an umbrella. $35 for an umbrella, which I think is overcharged, but $35. All right, well, I need this more than anything. I really have to buy. I can't get to this interview looking like I'm soaking wet. So I take the umbrella and I walk up to the counter, and I'm just about to buy it. and I look outside and the sun has come out. My value has changed. The value of that umbrella went from extreme to zero in a matter of a moment. So you never know when something of value it's variable. It can change at a moment in time. And the final part about value is relative, and its perception is really the key behind it all. For example, here's the guy tossing up his son for some reason or other in the middle of a street or a highway, and he thinks it's a great deal. The son, on the other hand, is getting a little nervous because he looks at it and says, hey, Dad, this is getting a little high. Just don't throw me so high. That's the perception of the son. The perception of the mother says, what the hell are you doing? Excuse me. What are you doing throwing Charlie all the way up there? Well, it may be like the first slide here or the first instance, but she perceives it as being that he's 30 feet in the air. That's her perception and that's her reality. So when it comes to a negotiation, the first tip you want to remember, and this is really important, don't assume what you value is what others value. You have to discover what they value and what they want. And it's at that point that you're going to begin to say, oh, well, maybe I can trade this for that. It doesn't have any value for me, but it has a lot of value for the other person for a lot of different reasons. The next thing I'm going to talk about here is leverage. How do I get people to move to my position? You know, leverage is really all about negotiation. Leverage is all about what I use to pull or push the counterpart closer to my position. And of course, the counterpart is doing the same thing. There's an exchange that's going on. You've got assets, you've got capabilities, you've got money in your pocket, you've got different resources that you can apply. Time becomes a resource actually that you can apply. You just don't know what the other person needs or wants or fears. Let's suppose that time is a factor. How could time be a factor? Suppose I have to catch a train or a flight, and I have to get to the airport, and I'm really fretting about it. Somebody comes along and says, I'll drive you there if you want. And he says, oh yeah, that'd be great. And he says, $50. Well, I can get you there and it's going to be $50. My fear maybe is more than what I'm willing to pay $50 for it. So the leverage he has is that I can get you to the airport and you can't. And here's what I'm willing to do. So it's a matter of matching assets, capabilities, and time to needs, fears, and wants. And you have to discover them. There's positive and there's negative leverage. Positive leverage is things like offer somebody a discount on a product that you're selling, or you customize the product. If you were buying a product like that car, one of the leverages that you can use to get the person to come to your side is to offer more money, just like the car. You can add services. You can see there's other points here that you can do. By the way, the positive review, this is really kind of interesting. I had a situation where I had a dishwasher here that overflowed, and it went to bed at night and woke up in the morning and my entire wood floor was just buckling and it was a mess. And I had to replace the whole thing. So I got somebody, you had to get two things. One, you had to get somebody to take out the floor in the first place, and then you had to get somebody to put a new floor in. So to get somebody to take out and demo the floor, if you will, I got a price. And I felt as though the price was really kind of high. So I didn't have a lot of data, but I figured, well, I'll try something. And what I said to him, I said, look, your price is a bit high to me, but I'll tell you what I do. I can't afford what you're offering. But what I'm willing to do is, if you do a great job, I'm really big on giving performance reviews. I'll post something on your website. I'll put it on Yelp, whatever you want. But if you do a great job and lower the price, that's what I will do for you. So what was going to take me 5 minutes to do and very little effort on my side actually saved me $500 because he dropped the price of what he was offering by $500. So you can have performance reviews that are very positive and are very capable of getting, your results you want. And then you have negative leverage too, such as you can terminate a service. You don't pay on time, we're going to just shut you down. Your website's going to go away. All sorts of things like that. You can do limited time offers. There's lots of positive and lots of negative leverage. So find your leverage. How do you find your leverage? One is simple observation, and the other is research. What's that car cost? How much is it? So you go online and you Google that kind of car, whatever it is, you figure out the model of the year and you see. So you have some idea of what that car is worth. And the other thing is observation, which is what are you going to do with the bike and the bike rack that's on the roof? Could that be part of the negotiation? Could that be part of the deal? So as a part of all of this, you may have a whole series of discovery questions. Why are you leaving? Why are you selling the car? Well, I'm going to go to Denver. Well, when are you leaving? I'm going tomorrow. I really got to get, my wife is on my case. I got to get this car sold so we can get out and get to Denver because we're relocating, and I'm not going to drive the car all the way out there. Well, that gives you leverage to say, well, now time is on my side, isn't it? And I know that he has to do a deal. So you begin to discover. So you're discovering your leverage. Listen carefully. Brainstorm on ideas, and you're always going to do trial and error. Well, what if I did this? What if you were, so a lot of trial and error, you go back and forth. As long as you've got a rapport with the person on the other side, that seems to be a natural activity that will go on. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel when you go into a job interview and it's the only opportunity you have? Think about it for a second. You're in a job interview, but it's the only one that you know of, that you have. Can you feel the angst? Yep. Now, how do you feel when you go to a job interview when you already have another job offer? You feel confident, you feel good, you're happy, you got a smile on your face, things are going well. And you go into that interview with confidence. Your ultimate leverage in a negotiation is your plan B. And in negotiation parlance, they call it your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So if I've already got a job offer in my hand and I'm going into a new job interview, well, I've got a great BATNA. I've got a great opportunity. Maybe it gives me an ability to negotiate, take some risks of negotiating the salary a little higher on this second interview than I did on the first interview, because the first one I didn't have an option. Now I have an option. So your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is really, really important. This is what you do. So you find your options, build your options. Your reservation price, by the way, your reservation price here, you see over here on the left side, $4,500. Yeah, that's your aspiration. Your reservation price of $7,000 on the left side. Well, when you look at that, there's $7,000. Up here is where this is your BATNA. This is where your cutoff is. What you're saying is, I have options up here that I'd rather do than to give more than $7,000. And of course, the seller has the same thing. He might say, well, I'll just give the car to my grandson rather than sell it for $4,500 or $5,000. So he has a BATNA. His BATNA is, he endears himself to his grandson. He feels good about it. So it's, that's your BATNA. It gives you confidence. It gives you walk away power. You can simply say, I'm done, I'm gone. No, this is not working. You can walk away, and walking away is something nobody likes to do in a negotiation. Smart negotiators never stop building their BATNA. In one of my businesses that I had salespeople, and they would come to me and say, hey, Jack, I got a great deal. Looks like it's going to come to fruition in the next month or two. I'm going to make my quota. It's going to be super fantastic. And, I'm really feeling good about it. And I'd say, Tom or Bill or whatever it is, that's great news. Now do yourself a favor. Go out and get another deal. Go get another deal. Because when a negotiation comes later on and you need to do this deal, this first deal, if you've got another deal in the works at the same time, you're going to be able to negotiate better than if you didn't. So for the salesman's sake, for my sake, I would always encourage them to make sure they have a lot of other opportunities in their quiver. That's really important for them, because when they get to the negotiation, if they don't have anything else and they're trying to make quota, they're going to be going, well, I'll give you a 15% discount. I can drop you 18%. It doesn't help me as the owner, and it doesn't help you as the salesman, because I'm not going to be really happy with you because you just gave away the store. So never stop building your BATNA. And that's your tip number 2, your plan B, your BATNA. Never stop building it. That's what's really key. Strategy. I got to move along. Strategy. It's not a straight line. You're going to get into a negotiation and it's going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there's lots of twists and turns in a negotiation. The first thing I want to tell you about strategy is that you need to adopt a trade mindset. You don't just give something. It has to be in exchange for something. It has to be barter. It has to be, if I give you this, what do I get in return? It's a swap. If you adopt a trade mentality, you're going to be far ahead in the game. So it's always something for something. Keep that in mind. Adopt a trade mentality. You know your needs and wants and fears. You've got your leverage. Never stop building your BATNA, and always research your counterpart's BATNA. What is it that they can do if they didn't have this, if they didn't do the deal with you? This is actually, oops, sorry. This is actually a negotiation that I had with Motorola at one point. And there were lots of gives and gets. Up here, you can't see it, but it says gives and gets. I would get some things, and I would give some things, and I would get some things. Motorola would give some things and get some things. And this is actually the worksheet that we actually worked from. So it was kind of nice. It was something that they had, and we used it, and it worked out well. So, and when you're in a negotiation, you're strategizing, and the twists and turns. Think about what you're doing each time you're going to take a deliberate action. So, question, should you be the first one to make an offer? Really big question. Comes up all the time. And this is what they call the great anchor debate. Whoever puts the first number out establishes what they call cognitive bias. This has been researched many, many, many times. The person who puts the first number out creates a mindset, cognitive bias. I'm going to give you a couple examples here of research that was done. So in this case, Group A was asked, are there more than 2,000 jelly beans in this jar? And how many do you think there are? That was Group A. Group B was asked, are there more or less than 6,000 jelly beans in this jar? And how many do you think there are? So one of them really anchored 2,000 jelly beans. The other anchored 6,000 jelly beans. This is the scatter diagram of how people responded. No matter what they did, psychologically, that's $6,000, 6,000 jelly beans stuck in their head. And they all began to hover more around that than they did the 2,000. Now, this is much of an outlier up here, but you can see that the 2,000 was down here. The 6,000 is here. So when that first car sale that we were talking about before, he put out a number. He anchored the number, and then the negotiation occurred from that point forward. So he created the cognitive bias of a situation. Another example, a group of college students were asked if they would volunteer 2 hours a week for 2 years as a camp counselor, and they all said no. But then they turned around and say, well, would you be willing to volunteer as a camp counselor for a single 2-hour trip? And 50% of them said yes. Sure, I'll do that, right? They anchored with this very heavy 2 hours a week for 2 years, and they all said no, but they anchored on that. The second group that they asked did not anchor it. They did not put an anchor out. What they did, they turned around and they said, look, just simply, will you volunteer as a camp counselor for a single 2-hour trip? And only 17% of them said yes. So they felt almost guilty in the first case because they heard 2 hours a week, 2 years, long time, but when they asked just for 2 hours one time, they got a 50% response. On the other hand, when there was no anchor, they only got 70% to say yes. So one of the questions that people have a lot about whether to go first or not is whether you're leaving money on the table. The only way you leave money on the table is if you don't have any sense of what the boundaries of the negotiation could be. What's the potential zone of potential agreement? If you're so far off in some wild number, well, that doesn't bode well for the negotiation in the first place. On the other hand, if you know kind of like, well, it's $7,000 to $5,000, it's going to be somewhere in there, you anchor at a certain point. Even if you anchor at a price that you're willing to accept, and by accepting it, you're saying, all right, I might even go a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but I'm willing to accept around this number. So leaving money on a table is, in a lot of cases, a fallacy. And frankly, research says that in 85% of the cases, this is really, you're really not leaving any money on the table. Some examples of anchors: retail stores and showrooms. You go into a Macy's and you go to the men's department or wherever, and you see these beautiful sweaters that are laid out there. They're great sweaters, $275 for these sweaters. Whoa, but they're really nice sweaters. And then you head toward the back of the store where you know that things are a lot less expensive. And you see another sweater back there for $168. And you say, oh, that's not bad. They anchored at $275 to give you a number. And then then later on, you go back out and you say $168. And all of a sudden, that sounds really pretty good. So there's car showrooms do this because, you'll see the sticker price. And then you're negotiating off the sticker price, aren't you? Restaurant waiting lists, contractors, new job offers. Here's the thing. How do you counter an anchor? Really, really difficult. But I'll tell you how you do it if you're going to be able to do it. You have to be able to have some real tangible data and information that supports your position of a different number. You're in a job interview. You researched the night before that as a systems analyst, you can make $85,000 a year. You get to an interview and the guy offers you for the same, what you think of the same comparable price, a $65,000 job starting position offer. And how you can maybe move him to the 85,000 number is to say to him, look, Tom, I did my research, I did my homework. I really like the job that's here, but I have to tell you, I did research last night and I was looking at comparable positions, and they're all in the $85,000 to $90,000 range. So $65,000 is just not working for me. And can we maybe look at the different criteria of what the jobs are? So you're segueing, and all of a sudden this guy says, how do I argue with this guy who's got actual research that tells him that $65,000 is too low? So maybe he begins to find some ways to crawl up to your number as opposed to you settling for his number. Tip number 3, think trade and go first. Think trade, mental set, and go first. Hey, you ever do this? Connect the 9 dots, okay, with 4 straight lines without taking your pen off the paper. If I had more time, I'd give you 5 minutes to do this and try it. But the answer is this. Now, a lot of people usually come along and say, wait a minute, you went out of bounds. You can't go up there and go out of bounds and come down and go out of bounds over here and then end up over here. What if I had done this? What if I had just simply said, hey, here's the 9 dots spread out in a different way? I can connect it that way. The only reason, the first one, the only reason you're deceived by this is because it looks like a box. It looks like you're not supposed to go out of the perimeter, if you will, or what you perceive as perimeter. So before you can think outside the box, and I'm bringing this up because this really relates to the next 3 or 4 points that I'm going to be making. You have to be smart enough to know that you're in a box. And your box is this. This is your box. Everybody has a box. You are defined by your DNA and your instincts. You're defined by your education. You're defined by your life experiences. And you're defined by your business and your work. You live in that box. That's where you are. Okay? Well, you know what? So does everybody else. But their boxes are not the same as your box. So what I'm really communicating to here is you have to find out what their box is like. You have to find out how they do things and how it's different than what you do. And if you project that your box is everybody else's box, that's where, don't assume what you value is what other people value. So how do you do that? First of all, you have to resist projecting your values onto the other person. And challenge your assumptions, challenge your presumptions. Involve outsiders. If you get into a situation where you can involve somebody else, maybe they'll hear something a little bit different. Their perspective might be a little bit different. Listening is really important. Spend out time outside the box. There's an expression that says, if you're always working in your business, you're not working on your business. And it's really very, very, very true. That's why you go to trade shows. That's why you have a board of directors, somebody to think from the outside in. Because it's easy to get lost in your box and think that that's the whole world, and it's not. And you think that you know your customer, and maybe you don't. So, working in your business and on your business are 2 different things. Let's talk about black swans. The things that you discover in a negotiation that can help you or hurt you, I guess. This is a great slide. We all think, we hear somebody say, well, I can sell it to you for $600, whatever it might be. And he said, that's his position. Well, there's a whole world of interests down here. What else does this guy want? What else can I negotiate? What else might be of value to him, not of value to me, but of value to him. And how do I discover this? So there's two types of negotiation. One is what they call position-based, which is competitive, it's zero sum, win-lose, it's this for that. And it ends there. And you end up claiming value, like the car guy, $400 in new tires, 50,000, 55,000 miles. Okay. But then there's also interest-based. And probably the simplest one I can do is you're creating value, such as the bike rack and the bike on that car before wasn't included in a negotiation. He was just selling the car. But what if you were to say to him, listen, I can come close to your price if you can include the bike and the bike rack to my negotiation. So you're now creating value. You're adding more value to yourself. And you know what? What's he going to do with a bike and a bike rack? So for him, the bike and the bike rack is a low value item because he doesn't want to carry it on the plane going out to Denver. He's relocated to Denver. So what he's really saying is, oh, I can give this away, but if this means getting the deal done, it's good news for me because I'm really giving up something of low value to me. But the other guy is asking me, hey, I'll take the bike and the bike rack, if you'll include that in the deal to sell the car. So it's a win-win situation. You're both winning. The seller's winning, the buyer is winning. So this is what they call interest-based. What is of interest? The bike and the bike rack were of interest to me. Maybe they're not of interest to you anymore because you're moving. Just to talk about talking and listening is really very important. In New York City, the motto of the police negotiation unit is "Talk to me," because to expand the ZOPA, to find more things to do things, you have to look at the interests and not the positions. Those discovery questions that you put together in the beginning, you use them. You begin to discover. You use crowbar words. I call it crowbar words, such as why. Why are you leaving? What are you doing? When? Where? All those W questions. And they say 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth. And when you get into a negotiation, you should use that proportionally. Only use your mouth 20% of the time. 80% of the time, you should be your eyes and your ears. And we often hear this expression, you're not listening to me. And because we are all fail a lot at negotiating, but great negotiators work at it. They pay attention. They listen completely. How often do we overstep somebody else's conversation by trying to answer a question or to make a point before they've even finished a point? And what's the expression? Let me finish. Let me finish. Listen to understand. Oh, this is a really good one. Avoid rebuttal listening. Too often we are in a negotiation, we're in a discussion with somebody, and we're just trying to figure out what are we going to say to rebut what they're telling me right now. Well, that's not constructive. That's just argumentative. Clarifying questions and mirroring. What you're telling me is, you're just simply reflecting back what you're hearing and saying, is that correct? And good negotiators understand that negotiating is an opportunity to learn. This is an example. I put together a program back in, I guess it was 2011. Actually, it was a little earlier than that. This was a couple years into it. But I put together a program where I leveraged Disney and I leveraged chambers of commerce. So what I did was I came up with the idea of offering a series of workshops, conferences, business and management conferences at Disney World. And I would get the chambers of commerce to market them to their members. And I would get Disney, and they have a big training outfit. I would get Disney to teach them. So it was really kind of great. It was a great business model because there was really nobody else involved except me. I had the chambers of commerce selling and I had Disney teaching. But one of the aspects of this is I had to negotiate hotel prices. So I had to figure out, well, I had to include the hotel in there, not the airfare, but the hotel. I had to include it. So I talked to the hospitality folks, the hotel folks, and they were giving me prices of, $300 a night. And there was no way I was going to make a 3-day conference, $300 a night at 300. It was no way I was going to make it, And in discussion with the guy, and you get into a nice discussion with this guy, he says, there are some weeks that are really bad weeks for Disney. Weeks. In other words, we don't fill the hotels. I said, well, what weeks are those? And he began to identify some of the weeks. And I said, well, I can use those weeks. I said, they make sense for me. They may not make sense for people who are going on vacation, but for a conference, these are pretty good times. So he identified a series of weeks where he would give me a substantial discount on the hotel rooms to make my model work in exchange for me bringing people down for those weeks when Disney was not that busy. So it's a black swan. I would never have known that. I would have never thought of that unless I was in conversation with him, and that's what he told me. So tip number 4, focus on interests, not positions. You have to discover the interests. They just don't jump out at you. But you can do that if you get into conversation. And that's where this next point goes. All negotiators are human. And here is something you want to burn into your brain. This is Maya Angelou, the author and poet. She says, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. This is so incredibly true. They really do forget what you said and what you did, but you remember the feeling that you had. And that feeling really burns into your body and brain, and you remember it forever. So when you're dealing with people, always think about, how is it that I'm making this other person feel? My words may not be articulate, what I'm saying may not be, what I'm doing may not be, the best, but if I'm making them feel good, then that's what they're going to remember. So your job is to engage with these other people, and communication is key. Most of it's by words. If you're just normal communications, the least of it is by words, 70%. Most of it is your voice tone, your facial expressions, your body language. I'm Italian. You know that I use my hands a lot. I bounce around a lot. That's just my culture. So that's what it is. It's a little different now on the internet and with Zoom, but you have to deal with it. Body language is important. Here's 2 gentlemen communicating and talking. They're making it work. There's a lot of good body language. They're both leaning forward. I think you all know what body language is talking about. The ways that you build rapport, some small talk, some mirror. Hey, where'd you go to college? You're trying to mirror connections. And why do you do that? You do that because you have a sense that you have more trust with the other person if you sense that they come from the same background that you come from. Express commitment, personal manner, really important. Other ways to build rapport. Hey, here's a good one. Start with a compliment. You get into a situation, you meet somebody, give them a compliment. Oh, that's a nice outfit. Oh, that's a great tie. Oh, you got great offices here. Whatever. Start with a compliment. Nobody ever can be mad at you when you start with a compliment. If you can remember and use names, really important. People find it important. Express empathy. This is a good one. I talked to Xfinity. I got a problem. My internet's down, or something's down, or I've lost something, or something's wrong. So I call them up, and you finally get somebody on the phone, which is difficult in itself. And then you say to them, instead of saying, I'm having a problem with your service, instead of saying that, try something along the lines of, hey, look, there's some problems I'm having with my computer. Maybe you and I can figure it out together. And if you can help me, that would I really appreciate it, and we can get this done. People will warm up to that, and it'll be a better transaction. This is the most powerful 4 words you're going to find almost anywhere. Can you help me? It used to be when you made phone calls, you call into a company and you wanted to talk to the president or CEO or something like that. And you didn't know the name, you just wanted to get to somebody. Sometimes, just to tell you, I would dial a number, just anybody in the company. And I'd say, listen, maybe you can help me. I'm trying to get to the president's office. Is it possible for you to transfer me there? And they would. Can you help me? Anybody who says that to me, yeah, sure. What can I do for you? How can I help you? 99% of the people respond very positively to this. Just human nature, I think. Trust is very important. Show respect, of course. Words matter a lot. Think versus feel, as we were talking about. If I asked you, what do you think about something? And then I ask you, how do you feel about that same thing? You're going to give me 2 different answers. And I'll share a small story with you. Changing 1 word saved my first business. My first business was kind of like the Amazon model. I was selling seats in training programs, and workshops and seminars and things. And to make my model work, I needed to get around 30% of the gate of whatever I was selling. So for a $500 program, I needed to get $150 commission out of that sale. So when we first started up, it was a startup, and we got some money and built it up, and we started building it up. And one of my guys came back and he says, Jesus, Jack, I'm having a real problem. Sorry about that, folks. I'm having a problem really getting to people to agree to pay a 30% commission. And we're all sitting there saying, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And one of the other guys said, well, why don't we just tell them we want to buy it at 70% of list price? Changing that one expression. The word commission was, they were always saying, well, commission, I pay 5%, 7%, 8%, maybe at the best, for my salespeople and so on. But as soon as we said, we want to buy a seat in your program at 70% of list, which of course is 30% margin to us, because I was going to sell the program at list price, never a problem. We got some 1,200 or 1,500 training providers to sign up for the deal, and we would sell seats in their programs, and we would collect the money from the customer, and we would send 70% of it on to, and there was some negotiation in there also, some a little bit less, but we would end up getting that money. So tip number 5, they'll never forget how you made them feel. Okay, so we're right up to 1 o'clock, so I'm going to have to pick up the pace a little bit here, if you don't mind. Dealing with the devil. Again, this is going to be online, so you can always catch up if you have to leave. As Teresa said, this is online. It'll be there for a little bit of while. So dealing with the devil. We've all been here. The ogre, if you will. How do you deal with them? How do you, it's a tough situation. And they're success blockers. Some people need to feel as though they win. They want to feel important. Power and control are important to them. They need to be right. This is actually the reverse. Some people need to be liked, so they begin to give away the farm. But when their boss finally comes to them and say, why did, we're not going to do this deal that you negotiated, because you know what, it's not in our interest. That person you were negotiating with just wanted you to like them. And so somewhere along the line, it's going to get nixed. So Keep that in mind, and always watch your emotions. Dealing with the devil, this is important. Somebody said to me one time, you never know what people are dealing with that day. You never know what's going on in their personal lives or their business lives. So if somebody is being surly with you, don't take it personally. It may not be you. It may be the fact that there's an illness in the family, or the kids were late at school, or you had an argument, or who knows what it might be. Maybe it was a tough commute getting to work. But you have all of these things that are on you. So just be careful. Check your emotions at the door, there's a way of dealing with it. Don't say no. Sometimes suggest options. Hey, what you said to me a little while ago really struck me. I think there may be an idea there in what you said. So what I did, I didn't say no, to what they were asking me. I segued into, well, you suggested something that clicked in my head, and now I've got another suggestion to go forward with. Make your idea their, make their idea, make your idea their idea. Involve others. Confidence. You want to go into a meeting with somebody who's really tough? Know your stuff. Just know your stuff. You know your stuff, you're going to have confidence. And confidence is really what the strength that you need when you go into a tough situation. Anticipate the toughest questions and brainstorm. Practice out loud. Say things out loud. Until you say something or talk about your product or your service or who you are, and you do it out loud, you don't own those words. Because, like I'm here talking alone, nobody in my unit. But, if you're doing a presentation, you do it out loud. And this is really kind of key. If you're going to do it on the phone, stand up. You got a lot more power standing up, psychological power, when you stand up and you talk to somebody than if you're just sitting in a chair. Conflict resolution, allow face saving, ask them to explain, stay calm, apologize, take a break if you have to, and then come back to the discussion. So tip number 6, keep your focus on the problem, not the person. Think about the problem, not the person. So let's get to closing the deal here. Okay. I believe that anytime you're going to have a negotiation, for every hour of negotiation time you anticipate, you should spend at least 4 hours in preparation. You just got to do it. Are you talking to a decision maker? Do you have a strong BATNA? Have you really got your BATNA in order, your plan B? Have you built a good win-win rapport with the person? Are you focusing on interests? And frankly, have you made a good faith effort? Okay. And the reasons why things don't fail, or why negotiations fail, is rapport and trust and empathy. All the things that make people feel as though you're not real. Don't burn bridges. Relationships do matter. Very seldom are you going to be in a situation where you buy or negotiate something and that's the last time you're going to be dealing with that person. For the most part, you're in business, whatever business you're in. And whether it's directly with that person or somebody that person knows, don't burn bridges. Relationships really do matter. Explore with what if. Well, what if we were to do this? Could we do this? Do that? How about, make provisional offers? Well, I'm willing to do this if. Listen and keep an open mind. Hey, by the way, listen and keep an open mind. Other people have great ideas. They really do. So listen and keep an open mind. They may have a great idea that's really good for you. If you're going to deliver good news, do it in bites. But if you're going to deliver bad news to somebody, do it all at once. hear all the issues before negotiating. A lot of times people will call you and they say, listen, I want to talk about that agreement we're going to have. And I want to go over a series of issues that that maybe we can go through. So starting with number one, here's number one. And they present a situation, and then you start negotiating on that particular point. No. What you do is you say, okay, what's number two? What's number three? What's number four? See the whole picture first before you start negotiating. Otherwise, you're going to get torn apart in a negotiation, because you'll have given away a lot on the first one, and then a lot away in the second one, and on the third one. And all of a sudden, by the time the fourth one comes up, you don't have anything more to give. Asking for agreement. Most people are afraid to do it. They fear it. They just feel that because somebody's going to say no. Well, frankly, okay, all your counterpart can do is say no. And no, other than yes, the best second answer is no. No gives you the opportunity to say why. Well, what can we do? What is it that you need to make this turn this into a yes? What's missing? What am I not listening to, or what am I not hearing? Tell me about what your position is. What would make us come closer together here? So don't worry about saying no. Tip number 7 is all your counterpart can do is say no, and there's nothing else. They can't beat you up. They can't throw you out the door, physically. All they can do is say no. What's the big deal? Don't worry about it. It gives you a chance to move on and say, let's talk about it some more then. So let me summarize by going through each of the tips. Tip number 1, don't assume what you value is what others value. Really important. Projection is really a bad thing to do. Get your plan B in order. Have your BATNA. Know what your plan B is going to be. And if you don't have a good one, go find one. Go build it. Go build it. Think trade. Okay. Exchange, trade, barter, trade, and then go first with the negotiation. Number 4, focus on interests, not positions. Focus on interests, not positions. 5, they'll never forget how you made them feel. Keep your focus on the problem, not on the people. And all your counterpart can do is say no. I know we're running late, but if Teresa, I'll leave it to you. If there's some questions there that want to ask, I'm more than glad to take a few minutes to do it.
Yeah, I do have a question. Well, first I want to say that I don't know if you saw in the chat, but we have some very favorable comments, and I think you should know about it. This is one of the best webinars I've attended this year, and yeah, somebody else seconded that, so I thought you should know that. Yeah, so the question is, should you always anchor on the high end of the range, even if you know they won't accept it?
Yeah, as long as you can get a sense that you're at the high end of the range, sure. Why not? As long as you don't put yourself outside the ballpark, right? And then they just walk away. Yeah, go for it. It's in your interest. And who knows? You know what? Who knows? Maybe that's acceptable to them. Who knows? And again, all I can do is what? All I can do is say no.
Okay. Are you recommending that you should be the first one to negotiate a number for an anchor?
I'm suggesting that you should be the first one that puts a number on the table. You don't have that option sometimes, such as when you walk into an auto dealer, the number's already there. It's on the sticker on the window. So they've already anchored in a way. You can counter it by saying the dealer down the street is willing to do this for me, but you has to have a real. You don't want to lie. Yeah, you want to be the first person. You want to be the one that puts the number out there and create the cognitive bias. So You know, somebody just asked about the $7,000 number. Well, why not? You just anchored. You just anchored at the 7,000, you know, the high end of a range. Fine. Let's negotiate around that point rather than 5,500.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Fantastic as always, Jack. Thank you so much. And I know everyone
You're
else
very welcome.
agrees. And like I said, the recording, I know that people asked about it, will be up in the next 24 to 48 hours, and it'll be up for a short period of time so that everyone gets a chance to rewatch. But all right. Have a great week, the rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.